Hey, it's Baz, filmmaker dad and the guy behind 20 Minute Gamer. Today I'm playing a game called Cairn, which I played on Steam. Now this is a game I know absolutely nothing about. I just saw it pop up on Steam and I thought, you know what? I like the art style, it looks cool, I really like mountain climbing. I've actually done a bit of climbing myself in real life. And I thought, you know what? I'll give this one 20 minutes and if you pardon the pun, I'll see if it grabs me. Before we get into it, if you like these sort of videos, these short reviews of openings of video games, please do give me a subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think of the video. Story. So this one's quite light on story. It's obviously just a game about climbing, and although there's a little bit of a cutscene at the start, there's not much really to go on. You can tell from the way that your character interacts with other people that she's a little bit disgruntled and a little bit moody perhaps. So perhaps she's had some sort of experience in the past where, you know, she's failed at doing something. That's the kind of vibe that I got. But basically, it seems like there's a huge mountain and you've got to climb it. You've got a little robot companion that talks to you and relays messages to you from other people. And that's about it, really. There's not much to go for a story. Having said that, I wasn't really expecting much of a story on this one, so it's not that disappointing. It's just, yeah, there's nothing here to grab you narratively, if that's what you're here for. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 10. Controls. So when I first started playing this one, I started climbing a wall and I actually laughed at how funny my character looked. It seemed like her legs weren't attached to her body, they were spinning around and her arms were spinning and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, oh my god, what have we got into? Is this supposed to be funny, like kind of Octodad? And Octodad's actually quite a good comparison. You basically control her limbs when she's on a wall. So there's a square button, which I used on the PlayStation controller, to mount to the wall. And from then, you basically control each of her limbs, and it seems to work clockwise. So you'll control her right arm, then her right leg, then her left leg, then her left arm. You move them around, and then you basically press square to grab onto the nearest surface. Surfaces could be things that are quite obvious, things sticking out of the wall at the start in a training area, or further on in the game, there'd be ridges and things like that, which you can grab onto. And you basically press square to grab onto it and then it moves to the next limb. And although it did look quite funny, and again, I did laugh at some of the sort of ways that she contorted herself into these really strange, quite horrific positions sometimes, it actually was kind of a dream to control. And any mistakes that I made seemed to be of my own doing. It was where I was not focused or I was grabbing onto something where there perhaps wasn't a very good, strong finger hold and things. So it seems like it's actually a bit of a dream to control this one, and towards the end of my playthrough, I'd forgotten completely about the controls and the kind of the funny angles that her limbs were bending at, and I just progressed up the mountain as though I was climbing in real life. I was just looking for the next foothold, and I did actually start to almost feel I've got cramp in my hands from holding down square and reaching so much, and it's obviously all just in my head, but it's really, really good. It's really, really tactile. You've also got the option to attach a piton to the wall, and there's a little mini game where you can basically, almost like a golf video game where it's got a power and a sweet spot in the bar to hit. And once you hit that, she drives a piton into the wall and it's a little bit of a secure line for you, almost like a bit of a breather. You can then recall the pitons when you get to the top of the cliff, and I'm assuming that you can then use these to get up bigger hills and string them together. Although obviously in my playthrough I didn't get that far. Overall, for controls, this is actually really, really good and really, really satisfying, and it's going to bleed a lot into my gameplay category, but I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Atmosphere. There is a lot of world building going on here with the sound design, the music and the visuals. You do kind of get sucked in pretty quickly. I really enjoyed the fact that the cutscenes at the start were quite minimal, and it did open with a little bit of a quote that almost sounded like a documentary excerpt, which I thought was quite an interesting touch. It gave the game a little bit more of a realistic feel. Once I progressed out of the training area, the world opens up into a beautiful mountainous area, and from there you're free to just tackle your way up to the top of the mountain. It seems like it's quite a small mountain, but I'm imagining as you go they get bigger and bigger, and I can really see this really hooking me in. Again, pardon the pun. I was completely immersed when I was playing this. As I was making my way up the cliff, I just really felt like I was a climber, and having climbed myself in real life, it's just took me back, and I really did feel like I was progressing up the hill, and I shared the frustration that the character obviously voiced when I did something with her that she wasn't happy with, like jumping off a cliff. Genuinely, I think one of the best comments I can have, which I've reflected on a few games, but this one in particular is that I just wasn't aware of the passage of time, and I looked at the clock and I was already 22 minutes in, and I thought, wow, that's flown over, and that just shows how immersed I was. Honestly, this is a 10 out of 10. Music and sound. To start with, to talk about the voiceovers, I thought they were really well done. There's some British accents going on in there, and the acting was pretty good, I thought. And they delivered in a really nice, natural manner as well. It didn't feel like acting, it felt almost like real conversations between two different people. And there's some really nice acoustics going on as well. You're in a training area at the start, and as she's speaking, it echoes around, and it does sound like the sort of sound that you get when you are in a kind of indoor climbing area, which I thought that was quite a nice touch. The sounds of the climbing, the pittons going into the wall, the robot jingling around, and your tools dangling off you is all really well done. It all sounds really, really tactile. And again, it works really well with the controls just to make you feel like you are controlling a real person as opposed to a video game character. Once you get outside, the ambience kicks in. You've got wind whooshing around, and I can imagine that this is going to get really intense the higher up you go. But it's got a really nice tactile feel to it. Again, you can hear the wind rushing around between the cliffs and the distant waterfalls and things like that, which was all really nicely done. And finally, the music is minimal, but when it's there, it works really well. It's kind of ethereal drones and really mild ambient score, which I really, really like. At one point towards the end of my playthrough, I panned the camera around just to see where I had been and to see the possibility of where I could go. And perfectly timing, a music track kicked in. It just faded in quite nicely. Obviously wasn't timed, but it was there for me to just enjoy and take in the moment, and it worked really, really well. So this was an absolute treat from an audio perspective, and I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Graphics and style. This game goes for a cel-shaded approach, however I found it to be actually quite detailed. The characters are really well done, the environments are really, really well done, and the rock faces themselves are easy to read. You can see where handholds and footholds are, and you can see where it's perhaps not a good choice to put your hand in your feet. This is really, really important for the gameplay, and I did not have any problems at all working out where I should be putting my hands and my feet. And any mistakes I made, I was aware that I was making them. They were my mistakes. They weren't because of the graphics. There's also some really beautiful vistas going on there. You can see really far off into the distance, and you can pull the camera back and look at the scale of the mountain and the cliff faces that you're going to be climbing. You can see your route as well. That's highlighted where you've been. And I can imagine there's almost a bit of a planning as to where you're going to go as well. It's just really well done. I think when you look close up at things like the grass, you can see that it's just flat 2D sprites that are animated quite nicely. But altogether, when you look at it and you stop and you just breathe in, I think it's really well done. It's a really nice presentation. Everything in the UI fades away when you're climbing, so you've got nothing intrusive there to remind you that you're playing a game. The user interface comes back in when you press a button, for example, to access your backpack, which I would also like to mention is really nicely done, nicely illustrated there. It's just a really nice, solid package, and I did notice subtly the lighting change towards the end of my playthrough, so I'm imagining there's also a kind of a time of day thing going on here where you can perhaps climb in nighttime or early morning, and each scene that you're in would change quite massively actually based upon the lighting and the time of day. But from what I saw, yeah, it was a really beautiful to look at game. The only real thing that I had with it was that there was a lot of clipping through the wall. So again, a lot of the jankiness that I mentioned with the controls, you've got her arms and legs spinning and they just look dislocated, to be honest, and it doesn't look like it's actually part of a real person's body. And quite often you'll stretch and your arm will clip through a bit of mountain, so there's a lot of kind of jankiness going on there. It's almost like the mountain has a really relaxed hitbox and that you can actually clip through it pretty easily, and you end up with some really nastily looking contorted poses. That's my only real gripe with this, but I think, you know, it didn't actually distract that much. It was just the initial looking at it, and I did have a little bit of a laugh, so I'm going to knock a few points off for that. That definitely needs a little bit of work, but overall this is a really solid visual package, and I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Gameplay. So what did I actually do in 20 minutes? I basically moved probably about 50 meters from the ground upwards, and that's all I did in my 20 minutes. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it was actually extremely rewarding. You start off in a training area where you will learn how to climb up some basic walls, kind of the clip and climb sort of stuff that I've done in real life and bouldering and things. And then you progress up out of the training area into this beautiful countryside where there is a cliff face in front of you. And all I did in my 20 minutes was just climb up that cliff face and try to get to the top. And honestly, it was so relaxing, it was so much fun, and I made several mistakes that resulted in me falling and slipping and straining and things. But all the mistakes were my own. It was things that I knew I was doing wrong, and that when I fell, I just wanted to get back up and try it again and look at different routes and different ways up. And it was just extremely rewarding. Honestly, towards the end of my playthrough, when I knew I was about 15 minutes in, I started to feel a little stressed just because I did actually want to get up to the next platform before the end of my playthrough. And it just shows how much I was engaged in this game, the fact that I did just want to keep on playing. And even when my 20-minute timer came, I almost thought, should I pause this and continue playing, or should I exit it and do my review? I actually wanted to put off doing the review because I wanted to continue playing this, and I think that's an absolutely massive compliment to this. I don't think this game's going to be for absolutely everyone, but I think if you're at a certain point in your life where you want something quite relaxing and you want that feeling of exploration and a little bit of risk and a bit of challenge, this is really gonna appeal to you. The only game I can think that's anything like this really that I've played is actually Death Stranding, where the environment itself and traversal becomes the gameplay and it's the challenge. And for me to experience that thrill again in just 20 minutes without long, lengthy Kojima-style cutscenes, and just to be able to go and explore the vast environment from the outset is absolutely brilliant. And it's fantastic that the gameplay is condensed and simple enough for you to grasp it within minutes, and then you're free to go. And I just really enjoyed my time with this one. So yeah, I think if you're a certain type of gamer, you're like myself, you were going to get a hell of a lot out of this one. I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. The standout moment in my 20 minutes has got to be just getting to the top of that first little cliff and panning the camera around to see where I'd been. It was just really rewarding, and I actually shook off the strain and stress that I'd put onto myself and just enjoyed the view. And I think that's actually what I would do in real life, and the fact that I was doing it in video game form just shows how immersed I was. Final verdict, is this worth 20 minutes? This is not going to surprise you at all, but I absolutely loved this game. This is one of the first games I've done on this channel where I've just wanted to keep on playing. I haven't wanted to stop and do a review. I've just wanted to carry on and just keep going. I could honestly play this for hours and hours. I think if you're after something that's really relaxing, that has a bit of a challenge and is quite rewarding at the same time, I think this game is definitely for you. If you've got any interest in climbing, or you've ever climbed before in the past, I think, again, this is really going to hook you in. Sorry about all the climbing puns. I really do think there's a lot to be enjoyed here. I think there's going to be a few gamers that aren't seeing the appeal of this one, perhaps people who want something more action-oriented or something more arcadey. And I think also the jankiness of the character animations might put people off in that it's just a little bit humorous sometimes. It is kind of like playing Octodad at first, but I think once you get past that, there's so much to be had here. And it teases at certain campsites. You've got a backpack that's full of chocolate bars and bandages and tools and gadgets and weather barometers and all this sort of stuff that just hints at this really exciting adventure. And I really will be jumping straight back into this one at some point in the next few days. I am going to give this one a 9 out of 10. So what do you think? Do you agree with me? Have you tried this and did it appeal to you, or is it a little bit basic for you? Did the jankiness and some of the horrible animations of the lady with her detached limbs put you off, or could you see past it like I could and just really enjoyed the feeling of climbing? I'd love to hear about your experience with the game, whether you've been just watching reviews and trying to work out whether to get it or not, or whether you've been playing it for hours and hours already. This is a really strong opening for me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, if you like this sort of video, please do give me a subscribe. I try and put out videos like this every week. I really look forward to seeing you on the next one.